In all the previous videos, we've been calling the APIs by passing the URLs directly as strings. However, this is prone to mistakes, and we can leverage Swift and its type safety and extensions to make this much better. Download the sample materials for this project and open the Xcode project up. You can use the completed project from the previous video if you've been following the course step by step. Make sure to replace the placeholders in imager credentials.swift with your own API key and API secret. First, create a new file in the project called networkclient.swift. This is going to wrap our alamofire calls to reduce the amount of code we duplicate and make it easier to extend and build alamofire later on. First, import alamofire, and then create a new type network client. Create a singleton that we can easily call. And we also need a property on the network client for a session. Create an initializer for the type and create the session in there. Then we need to implement the different static alamofire functions we call. So first, duplicate the request function. This takes a URL request convertible and returns a data request. Inside, we call the request function on the singleton session. However, every request we make using this needs to be validated and authenticated with our imager credentials. So add that to the request. This avoids us having to call validate and authenticate on every call we make, as it's done in one central place. Next, implement the download function. Since we only use this to download the Wikipedia logo, this simply takes a string for the URL, returns a download request, and we only need to call validate on the response. Finally, we need to implement the upload function. This takes an escaping closure which accepts multi-part form data and returns void. And it also takes the URL request convertible URL, with the function returning an upload request. Inside, we call upload in our shared session and pass the data through. Again, we can call validate and authenticate in a central place to avoid duplicating this everywhere. That's our network client complete. Next, we need a type-safe way of declaring our routes and converting them to URLs. Create a new file in the project called imagerrouter.swift. Again, import alamofire and create an enum called imagerrouter. First, we need another enum inside with a list of constants, in this case just our base URL. Our router enum will then have three cases for the different URLs of the imager API we hit: uploads, tags, and colors. Tags and colors both need a string associated value, which is the content ID of our upload. In order to create a URL request from each case, we need to know the HTTP method, the path, and any parameters we need to send with it. First, implement a method computed property that returns an HTTP method. If we're an upload, we'll return post, otherwise we'll return get. Next, we need another computed property to return the path as a string. Here, we simply return the path of the API for our respective case. Then we need to provide any parameters, which returns a string any dictionary. For tags, we'll pass the content ID with the image upload ID key. For colors, we'll do the same, but we'll also disable extract object colors. And then by default, we'll just return an empty dictionary. Last, we need to make it easy to use our enum. Make the enum conform to URL request convertible. This requires us to implement the asURLRequest function, which will convert our enum into a URL request. First, grab the base URL as a URL, and then create a URL request from it, adding the necessary path on. Then set the method to our computed property and add a custom timeout to allow the upload to complete. Finally, encode the request with the parameters and return the result. We now have everything we need to make type-safe calls. Open viewcontroller.swift and find our upload image function. Replace af.upload with networkclient.upload. And then instead of providing a string to upload to, we can use our upload enums case. You can then delete the validate and authenticate calls as they're done by the network client. Next, look at the download tags function. Delete the parameters, authenticate and validate calls, and replace the request call with the following. Much cleaner. Next, do the same with the download colors function. Finally, in download sample image, replace af.download with networkclient.download. And delete the validate call. This isn't a big change, but will make any change to our network session in the future much easier to manage. Build and run the app and make sure everything still works. In this video, we're going to see how to get our app ready to certificate pin requests. In the next video, we'll see how to actually implement it with alamofire. These videos are based on Lorenzo's awesome certificate pinning tutorial on raywendlick.com. Certificate pinning is a method to help you prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. It works by ensuring that the servers you're connecting to are who they say they are, by checking the certificate with a value you know. What we'll do is grab the public keys for Wikipedia and Imager, the two URLs we send requests to, and add them to our app. In Xcode, create a new group in PhotoTagger called Certificates. Then, in Terminal, navigate into the new directory. Then type the following. There's a lot going on here, but what this does is grab the certificate from the Wikimedia URL and then converts it into something we can use. Repeat the command for Imager. This connects to the Imager API to get the certificate for that. In Xcode, right-click on the Certificates group and click Add Files to PhotoTagger. Select our new certificates and make sure they'll be added to the PhotoTagger target so our app can read them. Next, open networkclient.swift. Inside the network client type, create a new struct called Certificates. First, create a new static function to read and get the certificates from the bundle. This will return SecCertificate, which is a type from iOS's security framework. Inside, get the file from the main bundle by looking up the file name and the file extension. Next, get the data contents from the file path. Finally, create a new security certificate and return it. Finally, we actually need to create properties for the certificates. Create static properties for Imager and Wikimedia that point to the certificates in our bundle using the function we've just written. Build the app to make sure everything compiles. We now have everything in place we need to be able to certificate pin our requests using alamofire. We'll see how to do that in the next video.